Hey there, got a big day planned today. Got some transplanting to do. Got to shuffle some trays from inside to outside. It's starting to really feel like spring here. We have temperatures in the 80s this week. Trees are all leafed out, getting nice and green. Beds are getting full. Things are growing. Feels amazing. Alright, so this is what we call the mini greenhouse. I talked about this a little bit in the seed starting video, and what we do is we start all our seeds inside under lights, and after a little while we'll bring them out here to harden off. They spend about 5 to 7 days out here to get ready to go outside, and sometimes we just, I don't know, shuffle things. We have to constantly shuffle things from inside to outside if we have space out here but not enough space inside, that sort of thing. So right here we got patty pan squash, one of my favorites to grow. And we're gonna get these transplanted out today. They're looking really big and strong. These are about 2.5 weeks old. We also got a whole bunch of basil. This is about a month old. This is gonna get interplanted with the tomatoes, so that'll be fun. We got some cucumbers here. These guys will get transplanted out today. Last year, we did these in the greenhouse, but this year, because the greenhouse is completely full of tomatoes, we're gonna do these out in the field, and we'll see how that goes. We also got, let's see here, we got a bed's worth of lettuce. Hopefully I can get that out today too, if I have time. And we got some other stuff. This is, we got some broccoli and some other kale and some chard and some beets and, you know, some other random things just for our personal garden. So we got our tray of cucumbers here. Let's get these out in the field. The first thing I do is pop them out of the plugs here so that they're easy to transplant. I'd rather do this not leaning over on top of the bed. So remember, always label your trays so you know what they are and when you planted them. You guys know I love bottom watering, so here's the bottom watering tray. What I do here is I just pop these out and put them in the bottom watering tray, and I'll carry this out to transplant. So pretty straightforward. Hopefully you guys can see this. I'm just using a bolt that fits really nicely. Just pop them in and then pull out the transplant. And there you go, look at this guy. Whoop. And I put them over here. And I'll just do these and get these all ready so that I can just bring them right out there. All right, that really only took a minute with cucumbers. Aren't that many to pull out, but don't these look awesome? Look at these guys. So some people say that you shouldn't transplant cucumbers. Some people say that you do. I did last year, it worked out great. I like transplanting stuff if I can. It just gives me just a really accurate planting because I know exactly how many plants are growing. It's not like I'm direct seeding them and, oh, this one didn't grow or that one didn't grow. For baby greens and stuff, I definitely direct seed, but for larger plants like lettuce, cucumbers, squash, I just transplant. It doesn't take that much time because there's not that many plants. They get a little bit of a jump start if there's any weeds because they're already a couple weeks old when they go in the ground when there's no weeds, because I started with a stale seed bed. So get these guys in the ground. I got this bed prepped yesterday and it's ready to go. One thing I always do before I transplant is I lay out a tape measure here, and that way I can really accurately transplant. And then take note of how you transplanted and your spacing, and then next time you do it or next year or whenever, you'll say, oh, I remember, and take notes like, oh, that was too close, that was too far, I can get a little more in, whatever. Today we're doing cucumbers. This is the first plant, so we're going to space these 18 inches apart, and so the first one I'm just going to do 9 inches from the end, and then we'll go another 18 inches. So we just make a little hole, put the plant in, cover it up. It really doesn't take too long to do this, so we'll just go ahead and keep going. So make a little hole. I just use my hands and then drop the transplant in and cover it up. So we'll just keep going like that. got the squashes transplanted. We really like growing patty pan squash. It's one of my favorites to grow and to eat. The customers loved it last year. We had a couple issues which I'm trying to figure out this year. One thing is they get really, really big when they grow, and so they are spaced every 18 inches apart, but they also grow really, really wide, and they sort of start taking over real estate. It makes it hard to walk around. So a couple things I did. One is I put it at the last bed in the block, so this is the end of the field block right here, and I also placed them a little bit off center, a little bit closer to the edge of the field block, so that if they grow over a little this way, I don't really care. I just want to be able to walk above the bed. Now if you have a couple of beds of them, you can just put them together and it's just sort of a big area of patty pan squash or other kinds of squash, which can be okay. The other thing we had trouble with last year was squash beetle, and they came midsummer. Our early squash did really well. We did some summer squash that we did pretty early. So what I'm gonna do this year is gonna do a couple of successions early in the year, and then we'll pull them out. So we'll get a big yield right away. It'll be very seasonal, and hopefully we can eliminate some of the squash beetle problems that we had. And with those two things, those are the things we struggled with last year, and we'll see how we do this year. Got that bed of lettuce transplanted. We do 4 rows, 6 inches apart in row, and just got another bed of lettuce into our succession here. All right, got all these lettuce starts to go outside. Looking amazing. These guys are a little over 2 weeks old, and we'll get them outside for, as I said, 5 to 7 days before they get put into the ground. But looking great. We got enough here for 2 beds. Just a couple of other pointers about transplanting. First of all, if it's warm out, like in the summer or just on a hot day, make sure you transplant as early in the morning as you can, or as late in the day as you can, late afternoon, early evening. And the reason for that is, if it's really hot out, it's going to stress out the plants a little bit when they're transplanted. So getting them out when it's not full sun, or at least not super hot out, is going to help their transition. Another thing is to have the transplants a little bit moist when you are transplanting them, and the reason for that is that when you put them in the ground, if the ground is a little bit drier, it's going to suck the moisture out of the plug. So having it a little bit moist helps with that. If it's too moist, it might sort of fall apart when you're pulling it out if the roots aren't super strong or whatever. So just sort of lightly moist is helpful. And last thing is make sure you water them in pretty good after you transplant them, and that will help the roots get settled in and get the plant a little bit stronger.